right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Althea Lucrezia here with me on the show. I think I got that right. Althea is an intuitive healer who specializes in channeling light language and helping people to clear karma and sift through timelines. Hello, Althea. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, all the way from South Africa. Exciting to connect with you. And I want to go ahead and kick off with my cliche opening question. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
I would say like healing and assisting on a collective level. I think it's really important to understand that we are all connected and we are all one. And as you expand and you assist and you heal, yourself, but also others, you heal through them. So the first thing that would come to my mind, that would be my passion. So much so that when I was growing up, I tried so many different modalities. Like I wanted to be a doctor at one point, so I was always kind of like in that line of of understanding of self and of expression and of what I can bring on a collective level until eventually, I situated in my craft and what it is now. So I'm classically Reiki trained. So I started kind of like with the Reiki about 10, 12 years ago. And then slowly kind of like I opened up into more what I'm doing now. So I don't know if it
Cool.
would be like a elevator conversation, but it would be my answer.
Well, it is your elevator conversation, and that's all that matters. You get to decide. So if you would share, you just shared a little bit, but whatever feels relevant to share regarding your backstory to give people sort of the context of, who you are, where you've been, how you got here, you know, like I said, whatever feels relevant to share.
Of course. So I do feel like sometimes I've lived 1,000 lifetimes just in this one because
Hmm.
there is quite a lot of experiences that I went through in order for me to be able to assist at this level for people. So I had quite a few very pivotal ones. I had an abduction back in 2018. Then I had
An extraterrestrial abduction?
yes, I had
Okay.
ET contact in third dimensional density. So like they were in my room.
Wow. Whoa, wow. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that, but go on. We can come back to it because that's intense.
So that was kind of like the first thing that really opened my mind, into higher consciousness states and understanding what is out there. Then about a year after that, I had a very intense experience, more on a personal level. I was in a very complicated relationship, and I had like extensive trauma. So I had to kind of like move out and away of that. It was an abusive relationship. And I was left like with no money, pregnant, no job. Like I had to go back to my parents. So
Wow.
yeah. And then through that, building my self-confidence and self-love and self-trust, being a single parent as well. I was then able to literally rebuild my life from scratch to get to where I am now. But like I had nothing, like everything was taken away from me. So I think
Wow.
that really helped me build like character strength. And now I assist also a lot of women who've just come out of abusive relationships as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's sounds like you've been on quite the adventure. Yeah, I'm always fascinated whenever someone talks about like a third dimensional experience with extraterrestrials. I actually had what I believe was, uh, you know, contact. It wasn't abduction, but about a year ago or so, me and my partner saw a craft we were at a transformational music festival. There was a craft like over the lake or waterway, and we're like, that is not a drone, that's too far out. And it was like completely red light, like moving really erratically. And I'm like, if you're not a drone, flash green at us. And my partner's like, yeah, wink at us. And it instantly like flashed bright green, very energetic. And then it just like blink, blink, blink. And yeah, it was intense.
You I got
So
goosebumps everywhere.
yeah, it was like to have it respond, that way. And it was such an intense bright green only one time. And then it continued. She said, wink at us. And then it continued to blink after that red. And yeah, it was for me. And then we kind of like meditated at that moment and like trying to connect with it. And it felt very much like, I got definitely a few messages. And it felt, I don't know, my intuitive reaction to it was it felt like a future version of self or something in some way. And I think a lot of times that I've heard people speak about that. I mean, and of course, at some degree it's all one, right? So it's like degrees of separation that we're speaking from, so, yeah, very interesting to kind of dissect all that. But I'm very curious to hear your story. It sounds like it might have been a traumatic,
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, so I mean, I went back in past life regression, and I went in this life regression as well. So I've actually been having contact since I was a child. Well,
Mm.
since I was a newborn. Actually, the first time I was taken up, I was about 3 months old. So that's quite an interesting experience that I had. I was basically like, and I remember it, and it's crazy because they say you can't have memories before you're like 2 years old, but I remember this very clearly. And I was in the middle of like my room, and I was looking up, and all I could do is like could just get my head up because I couldn't move, and I remember feeling the wet nappy around me. And then I remember my mom coming, opening the door, and me turning the head, and I had gotten from the cot with like bars on it out into the middle of my room, but I was like 3 months old, so I couldn't climb, I couldn't move, I couldn't walk. And then when I went back to us, they said to me, no, 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 they had taken me up just to take some genetic information. So this was like my first ever encounter that I had. They didn't contact me for long, but these were like benevolent beings. So I've had benevolent encounters and encounters that were more kind of like low vibrational frequency charged. So the one that I then had back in 2018 was not a very pleasant one that I had. Basically, I was in Italy. It was the evening, quite late, and I was staying at a friend's place. I had my own room. The room was on the ground floor. And I had like this window door that was open because we were in a secure complex, and it was just hot, and it was September, and I just wanted some air to flow. And I was struggling to fall asleep. The next day I had to fly back to South Africa. Now I was at a point in my life where I was in a low vibration. I wasn't very happy. There were just things in my life that I wasn't happy about, and so that kind of like to set the tone and the frequency that I was in, sort of thing, right? And then I couldn't sleep, and then the dogs actually started barking and going quite mad outside. I didn't really like think much of it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then eventually when I fall asleep, so I have a very active astral space. I've been lucid dreaming since I was a teenager. I'm very in control of my astral space. I'll do work. I know what's going on. I know where I am. I know, like it's not like I'm, like daydreaming. Like I'm very, very conscious in my astral. And all of a
Right.
sudden I'm running, and I know that aliens are coming to get me. And like people next to me start dropping dead. And I hide like under a table. This is in my dream, in my astral space. And as I do that, I feel that I physically start getting prodded on my lower back. So instantly my soul comes back in. I wake up out of the bed, and I turn my head, and there was the wall here. And between the wall and my face, there's a gray being there, like looking straight at me with like this round head. It had this kind of like sleeved gray thing up to here, this round collar around it. And then I was physically shoved back down into the pillow, and then I kind of like heard them leave from the window. So I knew that there was more than one. So obviously
Wow.
I was so traumatized, like I was petrified, like I was so scared because I knew what had happened. Like I knew these things were happening, but like you don't really expect it when it happens to you, you know.
Yeah.
So then what I did is I think I managed to get myself together to get up and close the window. And then I think I lay in bed shaking for about 2 hours. It took me 2 hours before I could go to the bathroom and just kind of like, and this was like, I think 10 minutes after I'd fallen asleep. Like,
Wow.
because I remember falling asleep and looking that it was like 3 or something. And then this was like 10 past 3 or something like that.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, the next day I flew back to South Africa, and I said, okay, I'm actually going to go to in regression. I want to go to someone who's going to take me back and see what happened. So I contacted 5 different women, and the fifth one eventually, because I said to them, I said, listen, I had aliens in my room. Like, have you had experience with this? Can you help me? Most of them were like, no, we just help people to stop smoke. And I was like, no, no, no. Like,
Hmm.
I need something on another level here.
Yeah.
And then eventually this woman that I went to, she had been a psychic for 10 years before that. So I said, perfect, this is exactly who I need. So I go to her and she takes me back there, and she takes me back as my higher version of self. And as I'm there as my higher version of self, I command them to leave. And I see there's three of them. I actually drew it after as well. So there were two at the foot of the bed and the one that was next to me. And as I go back and she says to me, tell them to leave, I say to them, you have to leave. And these three beings turn and look at me as my higher version of self while I'm looking at myself lying in the bed. So I
Wow.
was blown away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
then I could feel them panicking, and they were like, oh my God, like, how is she accessing this realm? She's not meant to be here. We're not meant to be seen. Like, this isn't what we signed up for. We have to leave. And
Wow.
so then they left. So I kind of like saved myself. It was like a quantum loop that I went through or something like that. So after that, I was like, okay, well, if the not so good ones exist, then the really good ones must exist as well. Let me try and connect to, the good and high vibrational frequency ones. But that was one of my worst fears. It was to be in contact and kind of like abducted by bad aliens. I was able to neutralize that going through that experience, and now I can do what I do because I don't really have any fear of this anymore, if it
Mm,
makes sense. It was obviously an
wow.
essential lesson for me. Yeah.
Wow. So it was like an opportunity for you to face that fear so that you could get to the work that you do now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Did you get any insight into what their intention was? And, I've heard, I just had Bashar on the show recently, if you're familiar with Bashar, who,
Mhm.
yeah, he channels,
He's
well,
amazing.
Bashar
Yeah.
is an extraterrestrial entity that Daryl Anka channels. And, he talks about like these grays being, um, sort of like future versions of self actually that have lost the ability to reproduce, and they're kind of or future versions but in another timeline that are coming over to get our DNA to try and fix their
Mhm.
problem with reproduction because of they've sort of
Yeah.
lost their way with technology, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious if you have any insight into that their intentions, if it was something like similar, or yeah, if you
Yeah.
just have any insight.
So yeah, I'm familiar with Bashar's work. He's amazing, and the Sasani beings. So I've had encounters with those type of beings, yes, which were the ones that took me when I was 3 months old. So those are the ones that are doing the genetic work. These ones here, they were not good. Like, they were kind of like minions working for someone else. And what they were doing is what I then, intuitively figured out is that they were actually, well, I was told I was only told this like a year or two after, that they were going from house to house to see who was sleeping and if they could do stuff, if they could like take samples or things like that. But this wasn't something for the highest kind of like timeline or contracts, if it makes sense. It was
Yeah.
almost like scheming. Meanwhile, the ones that took my DNA when I was 3 months old, so when I was back in 2017, I had a vision of a hybrid child that was made from my DNA, which was taken from me when I was 3 months old. So this
Wow.
child came to me. Yeah, it was a boy. Well, it is a boy. He's still alive.
Wow.
And he must have been maybe 8 or 9 years old. And I saw his face and he spoke to me telepathically. And I just felt this pure,
Wow.
unconditional love. And I just started
Crying.
crying for about
Wow.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does feel like it's in alignment with what also Bashar says, but I know there's hundreds of different gray species doing, some of them are doing really amazing things, some of them not so good. Like, there's so much out there going on that yeah, it's almost impossible to pinpoint this is that, this and that is that. I think one
Right.
could just go on feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense when you hear all the input from different people doing work, similar to yours, channeling, tapping into potential timelines, and just kind of peering behind the veil, so to speak. And and then of course you always have to weigh in people's human, and is it being filtered through someone's own. I mean, everything's being filtered through your human in some way, shape, or form too. So it's like, okay, what's what? There's a lot, there's a lot of information and ideas to sift through. So I'm curious, maybe and this is probably a 10-hour conversation we could have around this stuff, but from your perspective, if I were to ask you to give me sort of the Cliff Notes version of what is happening with extraterrestrial visitation, potential disclosure on our planet, and sort of your state of the union as it pertains to, you know,
Mhm.
extraterrestrial contact, since we already started on down that path.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think disclosure's been happening for a while now on an individual level. Like, look at
Hmm.
me, you, all these people having this kind of contact. So that's definitely been going on for a while. With regards to a mass disclosure, I can't really say because there's so many different timelines that are all happening at the same time.
Yep.
I do believe that there needs to be a certain vibrational frequency that's reached on a collective level for the planet to be ready for that. I know that we've entered the lower tiers of positively polarized fourth dimensional density. So the 3D and the 4D are actually overlapping, and we are headed into that direction. But I do think that, yeah, I mean, we'll see. We're living in very, very exciting times. For sure, we're going to see a lot happen in our lifetimes, and our children as well. And this hybrid program that's happening, they're kind of like fusing these different DNAs to make these beings that are in between us and them, so that when there is full disclosure, we're not going to be so traumatized. We're not going to see beings that look completely different. I believe that some of them might already be here, and we're doing their work and anchoring their light, and whatnot. So yeah, I think kind of like that's the direction we're going for sure. Like, it's already happening on like an individual level, but also to an extent on like a collective level. I mean, if you think about it, we are all co-creators of our reality. So what is going on within us is reflected on what is going on around us. And if we all start believing that they're going to come here, then you know what I mean? It's going to happen on a larger scale and on a bigger level. So it's down to, I think, a vibrational frequency on a collective level.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it really interesting, of course, what's happening here in the States. All of a sudden it's like such a big topic on major news channels, and it's sort of like, I mean, the government has basically said, yeah, there are craft, we don't know what they are, where they, I mean, it's sort of, they're slowly doing it. It's happened. This is the thing that people have been talking about for decades and decades is coming to pass. And it's like, okay, where is this leading? And then you have the people that think it's like a false flag kind of thing, and the government's just trying to set us up, for some sort of bullshit invasion or whatever. Who knows? Then you have things like, I just flew through Denver Airport recently, where you have Denver, Colorado, and there's signs everywhere about the reptilians that live underground and are stealing the airport tools. And like, it's like, what, where am I? Like, is this their like funny way of acknowledging something that's real? Like, I'm curious. Yeah. Curious if yeah, that's one thing that comes up, I guess, is in my ramble, is this idea of reptilians controlling the planet. That's been a big theme and with some people like David Icke and others. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that idea of like secret extraterrestrials controlling things from behind the scenes.
So I can only speak from my own personal experience. I have encountered reptilians in the astral, and I've actually
Mm,
had to like fight them. Like the
mm,
ones I encountered were not very nice.
mm,
I can't say I've encountered them in person, in the 3D, but I've had a few experiences in the astral where they've tried to attack me, where they also tried to co-create scenarios to try and confuse me, or because I do a lot of work in my astral space. I'll go and like assist children's souls. I've actually gone to like help and release children from caves and underground
wow.
bases. So I've seen some of those spaces, like I've seen some of them in the astral, and I've helped them there. So they do sometimes come and kind of like try and see what I'm doing or try and block me. But what I've learned is that every experience that I had to be for my own soul's evolution, and so that I can then share it and teach it to people and say, listen, this is what happened with me. So I'll just give you an example. This is the most recent one that happened last year. I was in the astral, and I was in one of these underground bases, and it was like sort of like a dungeon, and it had these like little caves and gates, but it was all empty. They were all empty, so everyone had left, and they had children that were kept in there, and souls and things like that. And I was walking around and just making sure that there was nothing left there. And I had these two men with me, and all of a sudden I feel like something's wrong. Like, these two people are not who they say they are. So then I turn, and then I said to them, like, you need to show yourselves. And when you say that, they can't keep on. It's like a, I don't know, a universal law or some sort, and they need to show themselves. So they
Mm,
showed themselves, and they were two like huge, like high reptilians. So the one grabbed me from the neck and then pushed me against the kind of like cave wall, and I could see these teeth like that were sharp, and these red eyes. And what I do when these things happen, I'll have certain tools that I use. So I started spraying light from my third eye and from my hands, and then it kind of like dissipated, and then I woke up and I was brought back. And then I asked my guides and I said to them, guys, like, for the level of work that I do, being of that vibration shouldn't be allowed in my frequency or even around me. So I said to my guides, I said, how is this possible? Like, is there something that I'm not seeing? Is there holes in my aura? Is there something? They were like, no, 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 no. They said, this is a pre-contracted experience that you chose to have so that then you can explain it to people and say, you know, like, these things are happening. This is how you deal with it. You know, if you stay in a vibration of love, you know, we all have a channel, we all have a chakra system, we can all work with the light. So you know, with the lower, medium and higher tiers of the astral space, when you elevate yourself on a frequency level, then they can't really come and get you, you know.
Yeah,
So that was like the latest experience that I had with reptilian beings. But I do believe that they're here. I do believe that, you know, they're behind the scenes and there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You know, I try to stay away from polarizing information just because working with light language, I try to focus more on the healing. I have knowledge of what is going on and I'm aware of it. I don't choose to put too much effort and energy in it because it's such a vast, like, rabbit hole to go
Yep.
down. You know what I mean?
Yep. Totally, totally. It's like be for something and against nothing is a great approach because if you're fighting or focused, you know, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So if you're constantly focusing on the conspiracies and the problems and the issues, I'm the same way. It's like, this is about as deep as I get even talking about these things. And I'm, you know, like, okay, and so how do we heal ourselves, you know? And I think it's really important. You know, a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people fall into the trap of, oh my God, all the awful things, you know, as they start to open up their own, you know, intuitive psychic perception, you know, their understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. It's like, it's a slippery slope to fall into that, you know, focusing on all the things happening behind the scenes that aren't exactly love, light,
Mhm.
and unicorns. And I think it's, like you said, it's important to kind of know some of that stuff and be aware so you can be aware of what direction you want to go. It's like, oh, okay, I know this is here, there, something's going on, and I know that's the direction I want to go over here, and be, you know, like I said, before something and against nothing. And I think that's a really important
Mhm.
thing for anyone contemplating some of these subjects to focus
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a necessary, like, path sometimes for the awakening to understand that these things are there and they're happening. But exactly as you said, like, you can choose where to put your attention and your effort and your energy, and why not choose to put it in something that's constructive and uplifting rather than something that, you know,
Yeah.
can be consuming and negative. It's good to have awareness of it, and once you
Yep.
know, okay, it's there, thanks, but I choose to focus on something else.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Well, I'm curious with your perception, your intuitive perception, and seeing, you know, how timelines play into all that, and seeing, you know, are you constantly sort of sifting through timelines and seeing potential timelines? Have you seen, like, you know, um, yeah, future versions and the different versions of Earth?
Yeah. So what I do is right now I'm actually clearing apocalyptic timelines so that they don't happen.
Mm.
That's what I've
Thank
been
you.
doing.
Thank you for your work. So you mean you're saving Starbucks for me? Oh, yes, perfect.
That's what I've been doing in the past few weeks. They've been sending me apocalyptic timelines to clear in the astral space. So there's no limitation of time there. So everything can be cleared very instantly and quickly. I don't really go into Earth timelines that much because there's so many. And it's such kind of like it can be a very polarizing subject. I try to stay away from polarizing information. So what I'll do is I'll go into specific timelines for my clients, or, you know, on a collective level to see, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of like the direction that I go down. I believe that all the timelines are possible and already existing. It's just a matter
Sure.
of learning to align with it.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? But
Yep.
from an Earth perspective, I would say, yeah, like I've been clearing quite a lot of apocalyptic timeline. I do believe that there's going to be some kind of economic restructuring and redistribution of wealth, and whatnot. So that in a positive way.
Mm.
I do think that a lot of people are actually going through taking, how can you say, are kind of like exit points. So a lot of souls are choosing to leave at this time, and they're either choosing to reincarnate back as children or to help from the other side.
Mm.
I don't know about you, but I've had in my personal life, even in the just in the last few months, I've had people like my age or young, just like die and leave because they don't really want to be here as per contract for the awakening. So that's something that's been happening on a collective level. I have seen like a very beautiful rise in the masculine within the last 3 or 4 years. That's been like a big shift that's been happening. Like a lot more of the divine masculine has been kind of like stepping up and stepping forward on that level. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different timelines. What I saw happen, this is quite important. This was around the end of May or so. I was speaking to a colleague, and well, she actually saw it, and then we spoke about it, and then I tuned into it. Basically, so Earth, right? There's our Earth, and then a timeline integrated into Earth with a lot of soul fragments that had to be integrated for people on a collective level. So a lot of people were going through a lot of ego deaths, a lot of changes, like losing their jobs or their relationships ending because they had to leave in the past what wasn't good for them anymore and move forward with the integration of these soul fragments. So there's
Mhm.
been a lot of soul fragment retrieval that's been happening on an individual, on a collective level, and on the earth itself. Like I believe Mother Gaia is clearing her own karma. We are clearing Atlantean karma at this time as well. So we're going through a kind of cycle to not make the same mistakes that we made in ancient Atlantis. So this is why so many starseeds and so many people are scared of the technology, because we've been down the path before where the technology was not used in the highest of alignments, and our kind of like mission now is to be able to integrate it in a way that is healthy and that assists us, because technology is a natural part of the evolution of consciousness. And on a planetary level, there's no point in just ignoring it. Like, yes, people can say, oh, I want to go in the forest and live there for the rest of my life and not like be around anyone. You can do that. You'll be holding the frequency. You're not going to be contributing to the evolution of consciousness on the planet and as a collective. So because we're moving forward, we need to learn to integrate this technology. So that's kind of like a karmic cycle that we're clearing, and a timeline where we are going towards. So it is going towards the positive one. I mean, you can even just see it like a quick example. And like Instagram or social media, a few years ago when I started posting light language, it was like 2018. No one even kind of like knew what it was. There were maybe like 5, 10 channelers out there. Now there's thousands of them,
Hmm.
and people are listening. Like it's an exponential growth. So that's like kind of like a positive timeline that I can say for certain that we're heading towards.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's light language is an interesting thing, and like you said, a lot of people. I see more and more people who are sort of having that experience uh, as a channel, and I'm just. I'd love to hear your sort of explanation. And I know here in a little bit you're going to actually. We talked before we started recording that you're willing to do a little transmission, which is awesome. Um, but yeah, maybe you can explain for those who don't know what light language is and how it works, etc.
Yeah, it's basically a vibration, a frequency that bypasses the conscious mind and works directly on your energy field, and on a soul level and on your DNA structure. It's a direct expression of the soul. Now, there's every single person who speaks the light language has their own imprinting. It cannot be translated verbatim like you would have your English, or your German or things like that. It can be expressed in many ways. It can be sung, it can be signed, it can be written, it can be spoken. So it's basically the new technology that's coming in to assist with healing. It can be coded. It works in the quantum realm. So you can code a code and you can say, okay, I want the code to go and help this person clear their trauma with their mother. That's what the code is going to do. So it's basically the new technology. It works in the quantum realm, so in fifth dimensional density and up. It can be infused with different kind of like energies. So let's say you're connecting to Pleiadian beings. It'll be kind of like infused with Pleiadian energy, or Arcturian beings infused with Arcturian energy. I wouldn't say it's kind of like a language as we would define a language in our English language. Do you know what I mean? And we still learning, like even myself, even if I've been channeling for many years, like I'm still learning the depth and the expansion of this modality. It's a healing modality, it's a healing technology, it's a means of communication and expression, but it's also so much more. And I think that kind of like explains it a little bit. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if I can give the
Right, right.
the more scientific, but I would say that that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It like bypasses the conscious mind. It's subconscious. It makes me think of a book, channeled text that I love, called Return of the Bird Tribes by Ken Carey. And he talks about how in the awakening that's to come, it's like a prophecy in the book, towards the end of it. And it's talking about how music and certain frequencies, vibrational sounds will have certain keys or triggers to awaken and unlock people. And so it feels like that sort of thing, right? It's like whoever happens to be tuning in out of the infinite amount of things vying for people's precious attention, and you happen to be tuning into this little podcast with the two of us talking, and they hear your offering that is perfectly crafted for the ears that are meant to hear it. There's would you say there's a soul contract there, for that to transpire? And it's people showing up like, okay, I have the key in your lock that's going to help you at that critical time. Make sure you tune in, don't miss that episode. That's sort of how I view a lot of these sorts of things, is like from the soul contract perspective. So curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it definitely goes where it's supposed to be felt. Like when I first started posting again back in 2018, I started a YouTube channel, and I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm mental. Like, no one knows about this. And surprisingly enough, it only went to people who were supposed to hear it. The people
Right.
who they didn't like insult or anything, they just kind of ignored it. So yeah, for sure, about 25 to 30% of my clients activate in light language. So it is something that happens. I have people contact me all the time that they say they are activated from my videos as well. So I've seen it almost like it does almost like a domino effect. You know what I mean? If someone's ready and they're open and they're willing to, then they can activate and anchor into it as well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I look forward to that here shortly. And um, yeah, before we get to that piece, though, few more questions I'd like to chat with you about. I'm curious what obviously a big part of the collective's journey, especially for those who would tune into a broadcast like this one, is clearing trauma and releasing trauma. And I'm curious, obviously it's easy to sort of quantify trauma from childhood or this lifetime. And it's a whole nother thing looking at past lives, or let's call them parallel lives, from, the nonlinear time that, our souls experience, I think you'd agree with. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the importance of releasing trauma and how past life, you know, even you could say future life. Once again, linear time is a physical dimension thing, and so it appears linearly as a past or a future life, but really it's a parallel life. Ultimately, I think you, like I said, you'd agree with. So, what are your thoughts on how people can take out the garbage, so to speak, clear the trauma, and how other lifetimes play into that?
So I think it's really important, as exactly as you said, like there's no past, present, parallel. We just use the word past for convenience's sake. So the way I understand how it works is you first kind of like work on clearing what happened in this present lifetime in the now. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there you go into you kind of like past lifetimes as a human on Earth. And then you do your past lifetime as a non-human on Earth. And then you go into your galactic lifetimes if you've had them, because there can be traumas and experiences that come from there as well. I think I always try to teach being present in the moment, being present in the now, and working with compassionate non-attachment, which is
Mm-hmm.
non-reaction, which is a way of reprogramming yourself away from the trauma. Because when you have a reaction to something, it comes from something inside you, and everything that is around you is a projection of what's going on within you as well. So if you're surrounded with people that aren't really like the best for you, then that's really not a good space space to be. So it goes down to reprogramming yourself, and you don't even necessarily always have to know what the trauma is. Like, it obviously helps. Like, a lot of star seeds have been hung before, their throats have been cut, they've been silenced in previous lifetimes. So obviously now they need to work on speaking up, speaking their truth, being present, being embodied, being anchored. So in that case, it can help. But sometimes you don't even really have to know. As long as you start working through the heart center and working on the connection between the heart and the throat. So having your thoughts, actions, emotions, and words all in alignment. You say something, you do it, right? You're speaking your truth. You're standing in your truth, and you're standing from the heart, from the compassion, from the heart center. Then everything else is going to kind of align, and you will get the challenges and the experience, and they will come to you, but you will know how to face them and how to respond to them. And you do it once, twice, a third time. The fourth time, you're reprogrammed. You're not going to answer that anymore. So you're aligning with a timeline where you don't have that trauma anymore. That's kind of like where you want to get. So this is why the astral space is so powerful, because you can heal traumas instantly. So when it happens that you dream of, I don't know, that friend from high school, that old relationship, that fight with your parent, you're actually clearing it in the astral space. But because there's no limitation of time, you can clear it instantly. Meanwhile, it would be a mission for you to go to your friend from high school and speak to them in the third dimensional density and reality, so that in your astral space, it can be done very, very quickly. So yeah, I would say the most important thing to work in clearing trauma is, go to people who help you in past life. Like, do go and ask for help. Like, it's a good thing, but you can really just help yourself by being present in the moment, by speaking your truth and working on that connection between the heart and the throat chakra.
Yeah, that's makes a lot of sense. How important it is to have thoughts, actions, words, deeds all in alignment is really the path to tapping into power. It's like anyone who's like, I always say any act of deception is an act of self-deception, because anyone who's operating at that frequency doesn't understand that they're deceiving themselves. They're disempowering themselves. Like, they don't understand the rules of the game in a certain sense, and therefore think that there's some sort of benefit that's going to be yielded from being out of integrity with your thoughts, words, deeds, actions, right? So, yeah, very interesting. I mean, do you have any advice for people who maybe haven't had a lot of, you hear people sometimes they're like, oh, I don't remember my dreams that much less, feel like they're operating in the astral, doing a bunch of work to clear trauma, etc. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who would like to experience more of that?
Yeah, I think, like, even if you don't remember, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not active in your astral space. Setting the intention before going to sleep is a really good way. So just, taking 5 minutes for yourself, meditating, clearing your mind, asking your guides to help you with recollection, with memory. What I've seen happen in people's energy fields and people's experiences is that there's cycles. So you'll have cycles of like maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where you're consistently clearing in the astral and remembering your dreams, and then you won't remember them for like a month or two. When that's going on, you're clearing on more of a physical level. So you're generally not clearing on both areas. So it's kind of like a cycle. So if you're clearing physically, then your astral will kind of quieten down. If your physical is in a space which is more of alignment, then you can be clearing up in your astral. But I would say, yeah, setting the intention, and then anything that really works with visualization. Visualization helps, even like candle meditation or yoga nidra, just anything that really brings you into the moment and helps you exercise that visualization processes.
Yeah. As of this recording, I did my solo episode yesterday, and it was all about visualization techniques. And I talked about the Silva method, which I don't know if you're familiar with or not, but pretty interesting story with this guy, Jose Silva, and ultimately just giving people some sort of structure with their visualization. So yeah, I was just talking about that. If you go back, well, as of the release of hearing this episode, it would be a few weeks ago. If you search, visualization, I forget the exact title of the episode, but use the word visualization. It's a really cool process that you guys can check out. And yeah, really, really good. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm curious, to hear you speak about is 0 point neutrality. that's something that, just kind of looking over some of the things that you are, you explore them, like that popped out to me, like, oh, what do you mean by 0 point neutrality? We hear a lot about escape velocity and sort of the well, what's the word? Shoot, I'm going blank on it, where it's like the where everything sort of collapses into that one moment. I'll think of it in a minute. But yeah, could you explain what you mean by 0 point neutrality?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you an example. It's probably the easiest way to explain it, and then I'll extrapolate from that. So basically, let's say you want to manifest something. Okay. So let's say I'll just give you a perfect example. Everyone in today's society wants to manifest financial abundance. So you want to manifest money. Okay. So how do you do that? You can sit down and write it down and use the different methods to manifest in the 3D. But if you manifest through 0 point neutrality, then you can get to that a lot quicker. So what do you do? So you basically like you imagine and you think, what is the money going to give you? Is it freedom to be able to travel? Is it safety, security to buy a house? Whatever. Let's say that you want it for freedom for the sake of this example. So you sit in meditation and you clear your mind until you get into that space where you are everything and nothing. The thoughts are gone, the stress is gone, everything is gone, and your vibrational frequency is neutral. When you get to that, you become the feeling that the monies will give you, which would be the freedom in this case, in order to align with that timeline. But you don't have to do it from a space of lack, because the lack comes from a space of need, so which is polarizing, which puts you back in polarity. And the 0 point neutrality is neutral, and it's a space where you can co-create anything. So it's what the sadhus would, I think, call samadhi or something like that. It's a space where you are at peace within you, so that you can co-create your reality, because you're in a space where you can see all the possible timeline and make the choices that are for your highest alignment. So how do you get there? It's about grounding. It's about being anchored, being grounded, being present in the now, and that mixed with the compassionate non-attachment, the non-reaction, this objective observation will put you in a space which is neutral. But if you want to manifest anything from 0 point neutrality, that would definitely be the quickest way, because then you align with the timeline where you already have that. But it's really important to not do it from a space of need, because it comes from a space of lack. So you kind of need to want it, but you need to be okay without it as well. I can give you, this is a perfect example. So this happened to me, like, I don't know, I think a year or so ago. So I've got my own bedroom and my own bathroom, and my daughter has a room next to me in her own bathroom as well, right? And I've got this really, really nice hand soap, like vanilla scented hand soap, that I use to wash my hands. Okay. So the one day I have my one in my bathroom, and then I go in my daughter's bathroom and I see that there isn't one. So I make a mental note. I'm like, oh, okay, I must put one there. Okay. So then I don't know, like half an hour or something passes by, and then I walk back into the bathroom and I see that there is a full thing of that vanilla soap. So the first thing I do is I go to my room and I'm like, did someone move the one in my room? No, there's one in my room as well. And then I ask everyone in the house, I'm like, did anyone put the new soap there? Because I had gone to check in the store if there was any soap in the closet, and there was none. So I made a note, I'm like, I must buy it. No one had placed it. What happened? I aligned with the timeline where the soap was already there, because I didn't have attachment to it. Like, I didn't care if it was going to be there or not, but I was like, okay, but let me kind of like get it. I kind of wanted it, but it wasn't like, you know what I mean? So I
Not a
hopped
bunch
into
of energy around it that's like pushing it away, like I have to have this or else.
Exactly. So I aligned with the timeline where there was a full thing of soap there. This is just like the perfect example of how you can manifest and align with things. So that's kind of like how I understand 0 point neutrality. I know there's different people who speak about it in different ways. I don't really do any external research. So what I speak from is from what I've channeled and from my own experiences as well.
Yeah. Very, very cool. When you're having, yeah, I love that example. It's a good one, because it's something that's small and not supercharged, right? You don't have a lot of charge around it one way or the other. And I think when you can have that around relationships and the house you want and the car that you want, what the job you want, these things that are bigger items, but you can be like, yeah, do I really need it to be at peace, fulfilled? No, I don't. And so if I can bring the energy of like that, I could take it or leave it. I prefer to take it, but whatever. I think I think that's a really powerful place to create from, and I think it's really cool when you start seeing things like little shifts in your, like, did I jump timelines? Because you might have seen this thing that a lot of people have talked about in recent years, and I'm curious your thoughts on it, where people talk about like remembering movies different. For example, they're like, hold on,
Mm.
it wasn't the Berenstein's Bears, it was the Berenstein, whatever. They're like slight variations in names of shows and things like that. Have you come across this? And
It's a Mandela effect. They
yeah,
call it the
yeah,
Mandela
right,
effect.
right, 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 right. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I had this was mental. I had this building that I walked past where I used to live when I used to live in Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it being like gray, like a
Mm-hmm.
light gray. And then all of a sudden, one day I walk past and it's like bright blue. And I'm like,
Wow.
I didn't see anyone paint it. And
Yep.
like the evening before and it was a big building. Like it's not like they could have painted it in like one morning,
Right.
you know. So definitely, like it definitely happens. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really an interesting phenomenon. Well, if it feels like a good time to you, I think it would be cool to invite you to share your light language transmission that
Of
you
course.
talked about doing. Yeah. Okay, great.
Sure. Okay, so you can just start by closing your eyes and anchoring into the body as we find a comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, we breathe in light. With every exhale, we release all that no longer serves us. And as we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, and Gabriel to the west, we call on Archangel Metatron with this blue cloak of protection from above, and Sandalphon to seal the grid from below, as we call on our higher selves of spirit guides. Anyone else who wishes to be present for the greatest and highest good, you're welcome in the space. Taina reatreo kuratsie serukunaraye kumara kumara kumaraya shirata kriasie sorokuro ishinata. This is going to assist with the heart throat connection that I was mentioning earlier. Tierokura ishinata krara rai rai raya shitakiena rata kriasata krato rotokuro ishirataka. Nta nie no riasie sut kumra sierata kra. Opening heart, opening systems, opening, calling in more light, divine rays, anchoring, more light, coming in, pushing through, out, letting go of blockages, letting go of old traumas, releasing, clean, releasing, opening, opening to more light, divine rays, anchoring, tuning systems. Expanding structures, activating blueprint. Taina treate cum rase sorokura treate kiena rato rokina rasia sero iate kaya terati 99999 ia rat codes of self-love, self-trust, anchoring into the heart, expanding, new light coming in, letting go, clearing, releasing, clearing circulation, nervous system, activating spinal column, opening, to more light, divine rays, anchoring, tuning, activating more light, expanding into more light, divine rays, anchoring, surrendering, allowing for more light to come in, anchoring, Clearing, releasing, decoding, detangling, detangling. I'm clearing some ancestral karma here. Some of you might feel it in the stomach, in the sacral. Anchoring more codes of love, self-trust, attuning, letting go, 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 letting go. Io to takria si sera takra. Traya te kuro tria na takra shira takra sira soro kuro ishira as we open to more love, more self-trust, trust of self, codes of knowledge coming in, anchoring, understanding of self. Tiro tira shira te kira tarata rata 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 traina tietu kumrasi sarate korotre nayata karate karosie saratrieta ra nriate ra ro letting go of any tension that you've been carrying, any weight that you've been carrying for others. You let it go, you let it go, you let it go. It is not your responsibility. You're responsible for your own thoughts, actions, emotions, and words, not other people's. More understanding of self, anchoring, divine rays. Tankieno to kumrai sirataka creo to kurai sirata kria ayashiro to kuraya sirata kria sesorokoro isanietaka triata kre to kunai shiro kurai nai shirataka Carro trucumra se sorokuro ishirata krasira sirata krieto ku rai yetuknaya si saratera tirata kratreo tukura tuning attuning third eye, attuning crown, attuning anchoring violet rays, aurora rays, rainbow rays, anchoring, clearing peripheral, clearing, releasing, activating iron armor, I am presence, calling in, shielding, closing, sealing, ura isira ishirataka riata ratro tria shirataka naya shino to rasia to kueshitaki okay, so you anchor back into the body. Yeah, how are you feeling?
Really high.
Yeah, it's an energy boost, like it's strong, like it's like a quick like reset of everything.
Amazing. Thank you. I've been exposed to quite a few light language transmissions, but I would have to say that was the most energetic and that I felt personally in my own body and system. And yeah, it definitely felt like something was happening for me. So
Yeah, and just like for the people who are listening, you will be clearing and releasing for a few hours. So if you do feel like things moving through, if you get a little bit emotional, if you feel like you're getting triggered and you don't want to be around people, like that's also okay. You might feel things kind of like settle down in the next few hours.
amazing. Well, as we sort of wind down here, I would love, and you've shared some stories already. So I normally kind of wind down with story time, stories of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal stories. And perhaps you have a really inspiring story that comes to mind that you'd care to share.
Well, I mean, I would have to say, to an extent, my experiences that I had, like all the trauma that I went through with, the pregnancy, the father of my child, like trying to kill me, and,
Wow.
yeah. And then they're being broke and having nothing and whatnot. That to me was very like changing. And if I look back at it, like I can really, really see the progress that I've made. And I think we all need to support each other, especially like right now, with everything that's been happening on a collective level, I think if you are feeling like you're stuck, or like, you can't get out of things or whatnot, the universe always has your back. The universe always supports you. Like, and yes, as you said, the synchronicities, the numbers, follow them. It means you're going in the right direction. Don't get attached to it. Don't get attached to anything. Don't get attached to the numbers. Don't get attached to the stories. Don't get attached to the experience. Allow it for what it is, integrate it, and then let it go. So I
Mm-hmm.
think when you start seeing, as you said, these synchronicities, or these experiences, or these things that start happening, it means that you're on the right direction. So I think, yeah, in my own experience, like, I just entered in a space of really deep, deep trust. And I think once you understand that you are always divinely guided, like, every individual here on earth right now as a whole ascension team for them that's there just waiting for them to help. So a really important thing that I just want to add is, ask your guides.
Yeah.
Ask them for help. They're just waiting for you to do that. They cannot help you unless you ask them. There is something that is called the law of non-intervention, which means unless you ask for help, they cannot intervene. So a lot of people come to you and they're like, oh, but I don't see my guides. They're not helping me. They're not assisting. Yes, but are you asking them?
Mm-hmm.
So ask them, guys. Speak to them. Doesn't matter what other people think. I mean, if people look at me while I'm working, I'm speaking to myself all the time.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. So yeah, trust your gut, trust your intuition. Stay grounded and speak and connect to your guides. I don't know if that kind of answered what you asked me.
It's perfect. I mean, so yeah, it's funny because that's come up a bunch of times for me in the last few days. Even I don't know if you're probably familiar with Lee Harris, who's also a channel and a personal friend of mine, and he sent me his new books, and I was just kind of checking them out, and that was one of the things in reading, a few pages was like how important the invitation and the asking is. It's the thing that unlocks the ability for the assistance to come through, and I think that's easy for us to forget and not be aware of. And so, yeah, that's asking it is given. That the help is waiting for you to be ready to receive it. Essentially, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also understanding that every action and all the energy that you put into your own spirituality, whether it's meditation, building an altar space, helping people, everything that goes into that is energy that comes back towards yourself. So when you are working on your own spirituality, you're not working on anything that is external. You're literally working on yourself.
Yeah. Right. Right. So I think it was, Ram Dass that said, all I can do for you is work on myself. All you can do for me is work on yourself, because it is in, changing the self that you change the world, because literally the world is a reflection of you, and you are the lead actor, director in your own private YOU universe. Right. So yeah, that is the path. As they would say in The Mandalorian, this is the way. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it's like become a
No,
thing.
I
I'm seeing it.
haven't, but I think
It's
I must. Everyone keeps speaking about
yeah,
it.
it's good. It's good. I prefer the book of Boba Fett out of all those, but it's good too. Mandalorian's good. And I love how they say this is the way. It's like it's good. It's strong. Good writing. Good writing. But well, for those who want to connect with you and continue to follow your work, et cetera, what's the best way to do so?
So you can actually find me on my website, Althea Lucrezia, or my Instagram, also Light Codes by ALA. And then through that, you can find, I offer a whole bunch of different courses. I take people through 6-week and 6-month program. I train light workers. So I train people to do energy healing and to help and to assist. I teach channeling as well. I do Akashic clearing, past life clearing. I do light language activations. I'm currently holding also a manifestation mentorship to help people. Also, if you're struggling to start your own spiritual business and that's the direction you want to go, I teach the energetics behind financial abundance, behind the social media, and how to kind of understand and relate to that. I've got workshops on releasing psychic attacks, on releasing attachments, on activating the third eye and psychic vision and intuition. And then I do a monthly collective healing. which a lot of people participate at, which is only for $12, and it's 45 minutes of channeled light language, and it's really, really, really useful, and it really assists a lot of people. And then I'm actually going to be in the States next year, so if people want to meet with me personally, I will be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo in February, and I
Isn't
will
that
be
in
holding.
LA? That's in LA, right?
Yes, that's in LA.
Oh, you'll
Yeah.
have to come visit. Me and my partner run a co-living event space called the Mystic Manor. That's definitely a
Oh,
hub
that sounds
for conscious community in LA, and we do, every couple months these big sort of transformational festivals for a day, if you will, with
wow,
workshops and yoga and DJs and pool and hot tub, and yeah, it's a vibe. So,
for sure.
yeah, we'll have
Even
to.
the name sounds so cool. The name is so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I started it. I set it up originally as a retreat center and studio for a late night style show called Optimistic, like spelled MYSTIC, that I filmed 17 episodes prior to COVID, and then COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything that we are doing with retreats and filming in front of a live audience, late night style talk show. And so, yeah, it's sort of evolved from those. Actually, I think in a couple of days it'll be our 4-year anniversary here. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's an incredible space. It really is a vortex and a beacon in the LA area. So yeah, let's definitely stay in touch when you're in town here, and you'll have to come through.
For sure, definitely. I would love that. Yeah. So I'll be there in February. I am holding workshops in Europe as well. I'm going to be in Milano in November and Paris as well, beginning of December, too. So I don't know. Yeah, if some people are listening here, then you can connect, and I can send all the information through that. And then next year I'll be doing the Conscious Life Expo in LA, and then the week after that I'll be holding a workshop in New York City. So for those of who are that side, that might be easier and whatnot. And I'm very, very excited to come that side as well. So it'll be an interesting experience. But yeah, just my website or my Instagram or my YouTube channel also, Althea Lucrezia.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I do have one final question for you here. It's my cliche closer, and it is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Althea Lucrezia?
Sure. I was just about to answer. Have you seen A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Ah, yes, I love this answer. What's the
Every
number?
time 42.
42. That's right. That's right. 42. Got it.
Yeah, 42. I was literally, that's because that's the question. Okay. Creating. And the reason I say that is because I had a very profound vision about 2 years ago where I was in deep meditation. I became a cell that was reproducing itself at a rapid rate. And I asked telepathically source, and I said, what is this? And I was told, this is what it is. This is the meaning of everything, the creation. So following that creativity, following that creation, following that space within the heart would be the closest from my understanding of what I would be able to define. Yeah.
I love that answer. It's very fundamental to, as we talk about on the show all the time, we're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. So we are the creator and created rolled into one. So when and where are you most fulfilled if what you are at your core is a creator? When you're creating, right? That's what it does. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, I believe everyone's path will involve creating in some way and serving in some way, because it's in serving, in giving that we receive, because there are no others. So this is the path to receiving, is in giving. So yeah, I love that answer. Thank you, Althea, so much for taking the time to come on and share your wisdom. And the channeling was super powerful. I so enjoyed it. And I know those out listening have enjoyed this episode. And yeah, thank all of you for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode of this show. Until next time, journey well.
Thank you.
Awesome. How was that for you?
Amazing. Are you still recording? No.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I can stop the recording.
No, it's fine. I don't mind. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you happy with everything? Are you happy with how it went?
Yeah, you're great. You're amazing. Definitely a bright light, and definitely stay in touch. I can give you my info if you'd like, phone number,
Please, yeah.
whatever. Yeah, and that way when you're in town, like I said, this
Can
place.
I write it down? Do you want to?
Yeah, if you check out Mystic Manor LA is our Instagram for the property.
Mystic with a Y or with a I?
With a Y. MYSTIC, and then MANORLA.
Yeah. And then are you running the Instagram? So if I message it, I'm going
to. My partner does. Karen is her
okay.
name. So yeah, I'll tell her about you. And it would be cool, even when you're in town, maybe we could do something here where you do a channeling or something. I mean, there's visionary art everywhere. The house itself.
I can see behind you. I can see.
Yeah, there's like 100 paintings like this one, behind me. Everywhere. It's just like, it's such a magical space. So I'd love to have you in it and experiencing it. And, with that much advance notice, we can maybe coordinate something where you have some sort of an offering, here.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Yeah. So then I can when I've got more details, I can just message the Instagram page.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. You can do that.
Like I've only got my flight there, but I think I'll be there. Obviously, I'm flying in on the 7th, and the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, I'll be at the Conscious Life Expo. Cool. But after that, I've got about a week where I'm in LA, that I've kept it like free to do different things and whatnot. So
amazing.
That would be the time. Yeah.
Definitely do that. And sometimes we might even have space for you to stay here. I don't know if you've got that figured out. It just depends on how,
Oh, amazing. No, I don't have, I'm still at the hotel for the conference, but after that, I don't have a space yet.
Okay. So reach out to Karen on, or I could even, follow my Instagram as well, which is optimistic, spelled with a Y. And then, that way I know that the messaging will go through if we're following each other. I think I just followed you. I'm not the biggest on social
profiles.
Media,
I've got my work one, which is LIGHTCODES, and then I've got my personal one, please spell it.
OPTI. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. You know what? It's not an O at the front. I forget to tell you. It's a 0. 0 PTI MYSTIC. 0 PTI.
Not optimistic fairy, no.
No.
Oh, there you go. Found you. Yep. Yes. Found you. Okay, found you. Perfect. Okay, so then if to communicate, I'm going to speak through to you through there.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then I'll connect you. And then Mystic Manor LA is our event.
I'm going to also follow Mystic Manor LA.
Yeah, and then I'll connect you. I'll connect you with Karen right now while I'm thinking of it.
Mystic Manor LA. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Got it. Venice, California.
Yep, that's it.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, perfect. And then when are you going to post it? I'm not going to post it before you, so I'll wait till you air it, and then when you're done, I can post it.
Okay, great. Yeah, they'll send you. Monique will send you. It's probably a few weeks from now or so.
Yeah, it's no rush, no hurry. So then I'll just send her an email, just asking her if she can just send me the video of it.
Excellent. Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, amazing.
Well,
thank you so much for everything. Yeah. It's so lovely to meet you. I look forward to connecting in LA then.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be really good. You'll love everything we got going on here, and I know you will bring your magic to the space. So I'm gonna.
Amazing.